Found my husband and little sister in bed together. My spouse, 22 female, and I had what I believed was the most fantastic, healthy, and happy marriage. We've been together for a little more than 2 years, but we've known each other for 7. We first met in high school, but I've never dated. I have a little boy whose biological father is a deadbeat. My husband took over and has been his father since he was 4 months old. My kid and family admire my spouse. He reminds everyone of my father, who died unexpectedly of a heart attack 4 years ago, on the floor of our living room. My family and hubby were quite close in a short period of time. My husband and I began trying for a child a few months after we began dating. However, we did not conceive our kid until 15 months after we began trying. Dealing with infertility was really difficult on my mental health. After the 7th negative pregnancy test in a row, I spent a lot of time weeping into my husband's chest. When we found out I was pregnant with our second son in November, we were overjoyed. The global scenario occurred, which put a damper on my pregnancy. As a result, I often invited my younger sister, 18F, to our apartment to keep me company while my husband worked long hours owing to the worldwide crisis. My 4 siblings and I are all quite close, but my youngest sister and I are by far the closest of all our siblings. I practically raised her after my mother abandoned us 2 months after our father died to go live with her lover. Would do anything for her at the drop of a hat and would always protect her and be on her side. My spouse decided to relax and have a drink for the first time in over a year one Saturday in April. My younger sister was visiting, so I went out and purchased some wine for her to drink so they could have fun drinking together, because I was pregnant and couldn't drink with him. When we were all playing video games and watching movies, I went to bed since it was becoming late, and I was exhausted. When I awoke about 1 a.m. and didn't see my spouse in bed next to me, I went up to check whether he was still playing video games. I didn't even bother putting on my spectacles. When I came out to the living room, I noticed him standing hunched over her, while she was resting on the sofa, in my severely fuzzy eyesight. They were both dressed, but I felt very nervous and sick to my stomach. When I questioned what they were doing, my husband said that he was chatting to her. I returned to the restroom and began weeping, but I dismissed it as stupid and hormonal, and trying to put it to the back of my mind. Only I couldn't because the recollection was consuming my every thought and driving me nuts. But I didn't have any evidence, and I didn't witness them doing anything, so I simply convinced myself that I was crazy, and that they would never do anything like that to me, particularly when I was significantly pregnant. My spouse began to grow more distant and downright rude to me. Always seems to find things to argue about with me. I'm not getting any attention, love, or it was very out of character for him. I dismissed it as him being concerned about the new baby. My husband and I purchased our first house in May, and I wanted to paint all of our rooms before we moved in. My husband agreed, and my sister volunteered to assist him. Fast forward to July, after 3 months of feeling that something wasn't right and that my marriage was in trouble. I awoke one Monday morning, 9 months pregnant, to an empty bed and no sign of my spouse. My younger sister had stayed the night. I put on my lenses and walked into the living room to check whether he was up and playing with the new cat we had acquired the night before. My stomach fell when there was no trace of him. The door to my unborn child's nursery, where my younger sister was sleeping, was open. My heart plummeted and my feet felt like cement blocks, yet I began going slowly towards the chamber, only to find my husband on his knees in our unborn son's nursery, administering oral to my baby sister. I knew it. "Get out of my home," were the first words out of my lips. I'll never forget the expressions on their faces. I was devastated and terrified. I rushed to our master bathroom and simply stood there stunned. When my husband walked in and attempted to speak to me, I threw everything within reach at him and ordered him to leave me alone. I pushed past him because he didn't. The rest of it is a blur to me, and I don't remember much of what happened. Except for keeping his keys hidden so he could take her back to my mother's house, she was completely uninterested. He ended up doing so anyways. However, despite my embarrassment and humiliation, I can't bring myself to leave him, no matter how disgusted, heartbroken, and sad I am at the moment. After my sister's behavior against me, I've only talked with her a few times, trying to figure out how in the world she could do such a thing to me of all people. When they couldn't come up with a satisfactory response, they had almost every time she came over while I was asleep. A romantic connection with my sister is neither a goal nor a need for me. Her commitment to me beyond that of everyone else on the face of the planet, in my opinion. How am I supposed to recover from the ultimate betrayal by the two people who mean the most to me? Edit. Just to make sure there aren't any misconceptions, my husband did not groom her or exploit her in any way. She has said that she did it fully on her own initiative. She and my spouse both said that there were no romantic overtones to the situation. It's all about the in this situation. It's also worth mentioning that my younger sister has a lengthy history of sleeping with older men. But I never expected she'd go so far as to have a relationship with my spouse. By mentioning this, I am not relieving him of any of the burden he is under. An adult male, 27, is now in prison for having relations with a minor, 15 years old, in the back of his car when she was 15 years old. In addition, the dude's name was the same as our older brother's. She just has big difficulties, as we all have. I found out she'd been using my when I was at work a few years back and was furious. She's nuts, and she has issues with limits, clearly creeped me out, so I tossed them away. But once again, I was completely unaware that she would seek to destabilize my marriage or our relationship. Also, she has a very special place in the heart of my son. I'm not sure why she would want to take the chance of ruining it. To be quite honest, I'm baffled. Story 2. Cheating bipolar girlfriend acted purely in love until the very end. The first and most important thing to understand is that I have no intention of getting back together with this girl. Nothing except awful anger, grief, and poisonous hatred are left in the wake of this tragedy. What I'm trying to figure out is if it's possible to really love someone who has betrayed you, since that's how she's been behaving since the betrayal. I discovered she had cheated on me the day after my 21st birthday. Then she cheated on me again after kissing me while asleep and went out with her friend. She was always telling me how much she cherished my company. When I got suspicious that she was cheating, she faked the most wonderful scream of innocence I had ever heard while seeming frightened, and I immediately recognized her. It was when I learned she was using cocaine again that I decided to stop our relationship. That night, she screamed her heart out, screaming, We have to be together, and don't leave me, I need you." That night, she tried an overdose and came perilously near to death before I was able to take her to the ER for treatment. She inquired as to whether or not we might continue to kiss and have after the separation the next morning in the hospital. Informed of her treachery, but sympathetic to her emotional state, I respectfully refused her offer. Immediately after our breakup, she wrote me letters stating that she would never forget me and that she wanted to be friends with me and my family in the future. I mentioned something along those lines to her. This was before I got worried that she and her emotional support pal, who also suffers from bipolar disorder, were having a relationship. I attempted to contact her via phone and text, but had no answer, so I headed over to her location. I was shocked when she told me, cynically and without remorse, that she had been him for the whole 2 months that we had been dating. She fiercely told me that he had pushed her to complete, despite the fact that she had always said that she was unable to. I was castrated directly in front of my eyes, and she removed my manhood from under my feet. She said that when her mother died, she stopped caring about anything and that I should have let her die on her own. As the relationship came to an end, our life had reduced considerably, but I continued to provide. In addition to attending full-time university, I worked 2 jobs, which left me exhausted at the end of each day. No matter how irregular her periods were, she always claimed to be on her period when in reality she was not. I understand she's going through a manic period of bipolar disease, but she'll be someone I loathe for the rest of my life. Can you tell me whether there's a part of her that loves me, and if there's a part of her that hates me?